I want to try to get a little bit creative. That's the kind of stuff that really makes me like the whole fabrication thing. What I've always wanted to do is make a 100% tool-free bag chain. You can get anything from Amazon. It's way too expensive, but when you're in a pinch, I ordered this yesterday, but I need it as now as possible. Yeah, buddy. It's stainless. Fit in there? Yes, it does. I'm going to transfer this over to the stainless steel, but I'm not just gonna trace it, because every time you trace something, it just gets a little less accurate. So I am going to trace it, but I am going to use it as just the rough design, and then I'm going to use measuring tools to figure out the precise shape. While I'm at it, I decided that I kind of want to make it slightly different. You see how thin it gets right here? I don't want any of that. Now I want to make this look perfectly symmetrical. I'll probably do this on paper so that I can fold it in half. Right now I'm just doing this by eye, and it's not going to be perfect. So that's more or less what it's going to look like. And then right here, for these, I'm actually going to use some measuring tools. I have had a lot of problems drilling stainless in the past. I don't know if it's crappy bits or just not approaching it right. I've seen some videos not all that long ago where I believe what they did was they had good drill bits for one, and two, they went really, really slow. I think it's the heat that causes the most problems. So I've got a nearly new bit, some lubricant, and I'm gonna go really slow. My drill press doesn't go slow enough, so let's see what happens. Well, I got some shavings. That's promising. Well, we made it through it. Is that it? Is that the answer? Just slow? Keep the heat down? Bit appears to be okay. Okay, did some holes. Now the question is, do I want to risk messing up my Hugin Rotocut hole cutters? Or is it gonna be just the same thing? Just nice and slow and keeping it cool. All right, how many holes can this 1/2-inch hole cutter cut in stainless before it smokes? Hopefully at least 4. So I'm running it fast real quick here and there, just trying to eject the chips. I'm not even cutting when I'm blipping it. Seems like it's cutting. Tips still feel sharp. Gotta be patient. I am not patient at all. But sometimes you just gotta realize that if you rush it, it's gonna end up taking a lot longer than it would if you just took your time. What's that saying? Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. One hole. Well, I succeeded cutting 2 holes in stainless with the Hugin Rotocut hole cutters. If I sound surprised, again, it's because I've had a lot of trouble with stainless in the past, and it appears that just going slow and keeping it lubricated and nice and cool is the answer. Just don't get impatient. The rest should be a lot quicker. Well, I did not do what I just said I was going to do and make a more accurate template before cutting this out. I just got too excited, and now this whole thing is all wonky, like off-center. Yeah, I'm ashamed. But I think I can fix this. My buddy Mark said the router in the vice trick made him cringe for whatever reason. I don't know why, because it switches. Accessible, but he suggested I get a foot pedal, and so I did. See if we like this better. Yeah, I suppose it's kind of cool. Necessary? I don't know. But it's cool. Alright, here's just a little piece of paper. I'm going to trace it on there so that I can fold it in half. That mark. Gotta trim off all this black, and we'll have a symmetrical piece. All right, time to stop. OCD is starting to kick in. I'm not usually the type of person that's like, nobody will see it, but literally, nobody will see this. It is going to be forever trapped inside the spring cup. So why am I perfecting? It's not perfect, that's okay. Those of you that had ugly kids know exactly what I'm talking about. You can't really start over. You just gotta accept your creation and love it. And I love it, even though it's ugly. Like your kid. Now that the bag plate design is figured out, we now know how thick the entire bag is going to be with the plate. Remember, this bag has a minimum height of 3 inches, and we just added one plate that's a 1/4 inch thick, so we're now dealing with essentially a 3 1/4 inch air spring that needs to fit in our little gap right there. Remember when we cut the spring cup to create a 3-inch gap in between here earlier? I remember, because it was stupid, because now I have to do it again. The lower control arm is set to the fully laid out, deflated position, so this gap needs to be 3 1/4 inches. So I'm going to trim this up once more, and I'm going to be cutting through this weld on this piece right here. So I'm just going to remove this. The stop for the upper control arm on the factory Mighty Max would hit right there when the suspension was fully extended. But we're not going to have that bump stop anymore, so I'm going to get rid of that little plate. I am ready to position the air spring right where it belongs. If you don't already have your air spring like I do, this part of the video is also going to help you determine what size air spring you need. I have a 6-inch bag because that's what the truck came with. And I have a new engine in here, but it is the same block, so I'm assuming it's very close to the same weight. And the 6-inch bag did just fine. In my D50, which is the exact same frame, I put a V8 in it, and I went up to a 7-inch bag. That was a very tight fit, but I was able to get it to work. So first things first, we need to center it this direction. Typically on most cars, you'll have all kinds of room in the front and in the back. What we really need to worry about is the wheel side of the bag and the frame side of the bag. We don't want any rubbing whatsoever. Normally, when positioning a bag, I would use this. This is a mock-up air spring that I made for a 7-inch bag. And this thing is created at the compressed height of a 7-inch bag. It has the mounting holes on top, so I would just bolt the mounting plate onto this mock-up bag, position it right where I wanted, ensuring that I have clearance on all sides because these little bellows are accurate. And once it was in position, I would just weld the top plate in place, and then I would just mark the bottom plate. Unfortunately, this is not the right size. My mounting holes aren't the right place. The overall diameter is not the right diameter, so this is not going to work, which is good news for you because then I can show you other ways of mounting it if you don't want to go through the trouble of making one of these. If you do, I have a video on it. I'll leave a link in the description. This is my mock-up air spring for today. It is just a 1-inch by 3-inch piece of hollow rectangle tubing. Doesn't look anything like an air spring, and that's okay. It is the exact height of a compressed air spring, and I have cut it to the diameter of the air spring. Actually, just a little bit longer. This is a 6-inch air spring. This is a 6.5-inch piece of metal. The reason I did that is to make the clearances even tighter for this, to ensure that the air spring is going to fit nicely without rubbing on anything. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to center it on my center line, and I'm going to compress the suspension to the laid out position. All right, that's the compressed height, and I am going to position this so that it is not touching anything. Now, I have a center mark on the bottom of this that's drawn up onto the side so that I can actually see where the center of this thing is, and that's going to help me transfer the center mark onto the control arm. So what am I looking for? I am making sure that this does not touch anything and that there's a significant amount of clearance on both sides. I don't know if you could see in there, so we don't want the air spring to contact this back wall there, and we don't want it to contact the ball joint or the bolts for that matter. Here's a good time to bring the actual air spring back in. True or false? The clearance is good between this bolt and the air spring. The answer is false. This air spring is not compressed all the way. When it is, this edge of the bag will actually come very close and more than likely touch the mount that it's sitting on. Let's see if I can squeeze it enough to mimic full compression. Not really, and definitely not with the bolt there, but the air spring, when it is fully deflated, will contact that nut. So, proper location is completely clearing that nut. And that's where this doohickey is actually better than my mock-up bag, because if you remember, I cut this to just over the size of the diameter of the bag. My bag is 6 inches, I cut this to 6.5. That way, if I can get this to fit without contacting anything and center it, I will actually have more clearance than I would with this piece. So I will mark it here, where this mark is, and this mark is also on the other side. So I can mark it there as well, and then I will have 2 points that I can connect. This is now the center of my bottom bag plate. So where will the center of the upper bag plate be? Usually that's where the mock-up air spring would come in handy. I would just bolt the upper plate to that, center the mock-up bag on my line there, possibly even actually mount it with a bolt, and then weld the top plate in place. But again, I don't have a mock-up bag the proper size, so we can't use that today. So we're gonna figure out a way of using this. This air spring project has taken several days. I don't know if you've been able to see, but my shirt has probably changed multiple times in this one video. And that's because I keep getting interrupted, and then I end up in bed, laying on my pillow, thinking about the project, and coming up with different, better ways of doing things than what I had previously planned throughout the day. And it keeps happening over and over again. In fact, this entire design for the quick release bag was developed on my pillow. And so I'm kind of having an interesting epiphany right now, in that I'm often rushing to get these projects done for the videos by simply slowing down and stopping occasionally and thinking about the project. The end product is getting so much better. And I'm enjoying myself a hell of a lot more. So I don't really know why I'm telling you this. I'm kind of telling this to myself, that I need to kind of chillax a little bit while building stuff and be more thoughtful about the things that I'm doing. So this whole thing was sparked by another session of, we'll call it pillow fab. When you're laying in bed at night and you're thinking about the project and designing things and running it through your head. Anyways, as I've been cutting this bag cup, I have been leaving some material in the back for a form of a gusset. Gussets are really important. You want to avoid super sharp corners. If I were to just cut this straight to the back and have a sharp corner there, this whole thing would probably crack. The crack would probably travel into the frame. It would just be ugly. So you have to constantly try to see where stresses are going to be, get rid of sharp corners and stuff like that, add gussets where necessary. But last night I was thinking, if I were to leave these gussets here, I would have to figure out how to shape the upper bag plate to fit in between those gussets. I would have to spend a fair amount of time shaping this to fit perfectly between those gussets. And then I got to thinking, you know what? Let's cut off these gussets. Let's make this cut go straight back to the frame and use this entire piece. And what's going to happen is I'm going to have these flat edges on the side, and I will just add gussets to that. That'll be much better, I think, because this is just 1/8" steel right here. It's certainly better than nothing, but we have cut off so much of this that I just think we could use a little bit more support. Can't we all just use a little bit more support? I mean, there's not really such thing as too much support when you're building a car. There's definitely too much weight. Tangent. Let's stop this now. So we need to shape these plates to fit the car. So I decided we're gonna revert back to this wood piece because that's a hell of a lot easier to get this to fit. And then we'll lay it on top, cut these metal plates to fit. Why didn't we just shape this one in the beginning and not even cut out the metal plates yet? Because I wasn't really sure about this whole design yet. I wanted to actually see it working in steel form before spending a whole lot of time on it. Now that we got this all figured out, let's go back to this guy and let's make this fit the car. Actually, let's go back even further to the cardboard template that we never even made because we drafted everything out right onto this wood piece. So we kind of skipped the whole cardboard template phase. Trimmed it and it fits well, but I trimmed it too much. What I did was I put the center lines on the cardboard so that when I was fitting it, I could see where the center was, and I trimmed it too much. The center line needs to come out. So I cut about a 1/2 inch too much off the backside. So I'm gonna just transfer this over to the wood one and add a little bit of material onto the back. Yeah, it's about a 1/2 inch right there. And a little wrong tool for the job. The cutoff wheel is just so much straighter than the Jiggler saw, and it smells fantastic. Alright, that's nice. That was a good little eyeball measurement. Center is centered on the side. Center is centered on the front. This is fantastic. The only problem, which I'm not even going to bother filming, is I need to trim up the backside just a little bit because this control arm is not at 21 1/4 right now. I had to lower it a little bit in order to get this in there, which is why there's space in the front, but not in the back. Because I need to trim this back up a little bit. But the original builder of this truck had put a plate in there for their mounting setup, which was a pretty cool setup. No problems with that. They actually just had a couple bolts in the back. It was kind of cool. But what's not cool is this plate is causing me problems. I can't trim that up quite as high as I need to until I dig at least part of that plate out. So that sucks. I'm gonna do that and I'll see you later. While I was digging part of that plate out, which ended up not being that hard, thank goodness, I went ahead and trimmed it up. I beveled the corners, cleaned it up real nice, did another test fit, and it is perfect. I'm really happy with this right now. Now I'm just trying to decide if I want to trim this plate to match the spring pocket. Does it matter? I'm not really sure. I don't think that little bit of metal is going to make it any stronger, so cutting it off shouldn't be a problem, and it will look a lot better. What do you think? Tell me in the comments, but tell me loudly because I'm about to move on. So the air spring will kind of appear to be off center, so that's something to consider. Remember, this outer circle on this is the perimeter of the bag, which, by the way, that's kind of interesting. It shows how close it is to the wall, but there's still clearance, no rubby. So, man, I don't know what to do. I decided to leave it alone for now. I am not going to trim off this front piece. I'm just going to cut the back side of this plate, weld it in place, and then decide if I absolutely hate it. I can just cut off this edge with a plasma cutter, clean it up with a flap disc. It'll take a lot more time, it'll be more difficult, but I can't cut it off and put it back on. So if I cut it off and I put the bag on there and it just looks weird, I gotta build a whole new plate, and that's including drilling these holes and everything. So gonna wait just a little bit, mount this plate and see what it looks like. Now, just so you know, I was planning on cleaning up this edge right now before welding it onto the car. But because I'm struggling with this edge right here and I don't know what I want to do, I'm not going to spend any time cleaning this up just yet. Again, I'm going to have to do this on the car. It's not going to be as perfect. It's going to be more difficult than it would be if I were to do it in my vise, but trying to work smarter. Plate is in position. I transferred those marks onto the metal so that I could position everything again. So it's centered again, and it is ready to be welded on. Let's go. Oh wow, I almost made a really big mistake and I would have cried. I would have cried so hard and I would have filmed the whole thing. I was just about to weld that on. I completely forgot about this guy. I still haven't told anyone what my plan was for this, but I will tell you that if I would have welded this plate on, Also, I think I may have discovered a potential problem. So I'm just gonna mark this cup and we're gonna see if my thoughts are correct. Will the spring cup prevent the clip from moving as far as it needs to move to disengage? Looks like potentially yes, but not by much. Do, 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 do. That's nice. Very nice. Yep. I guess we should make sure that that doesn't happen. Planning on putting a little tail piece on there for a tool, but it'll also keep it from sucking in there and getting lost forever. Yeah, let's handle that. So this line that we drew on there comes in handy. Where do my rulers go? Does stainless bend well? I feel like I should know this, but I don't. When I try to bend this, it's gonna snap right off. Place your bets. Oh, really nice actually. Oh, I'm getting excited. Where'd you go, Clippy? There it is. There it is. I don't see any future problems with that at all. Nothing can go wrong. Not a thing. Let's weld this thing on. Right this moment, I'm thinking that I should make this plate bolt on so that one day if I ever need to access this clip to make repairs or whatever to the engagement portions of said clip, I can just take it out or rebuild it or something. But I'm not gonna. I am not unhappy with this at all. In fact, I even went ahead and trimmed up the plasma cut edges, beveled the corners, you know, just to make it look nice. I have a feeling when the air spring is attached, this kind of off-center look is just gonna disappear. So I'm not gonna touch that. So we are about done. But what about the bottom? I haven't even said anything about the bottom yet. The bottom is gonna be pretty simple, so I'm not even gonna explain what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna do it. Because it's really simple. Not quite as fancy as the top. So that's great and all that, but what are you gonna do with the airline? Well, I don't have it yet, but I plan on getting a steel braided leader hose that's going to be attached with tools to this port. And just to make sure that it's gonna work, I think I'm going to make one, a temporary one, out of some extra hose that I have laying around. This is only gonna be temporary for testing, but it's nice and flexible, just like this. So it should give us an idea of whether or not this is gonna work. And man, I need to stop opening waters. Holy crap. Finish something, dude. Oh, come on. Well, my hole for the airline is not big enough for this adapter or reducer or whatever you want to call it. I may have to knock off this hex unless they make a smaller one. Well, crap. Well, still, let's attach a hose so you can see what I was planning. And there it is. And I was so excited to pretend to install this, but this stupid hose fitting has to go. All right, air fitting's gone. Let's see how this works. Well, it's not going in already. That's, oh, moron. Oh, oh, wow. Oh, that was way too easy. Hold on, something's wrong. Oh my goodness. Oh wow. Okay, it's a little wiggly, but I think that's because I left these a little loose. Yep. Oh wow. Okay. That's amazing. And then the bottom pins. Come on. You can do it. So I'm afraid that the mechanism that I thought was going to hold this in place, which is these things being cocked sideways, would make it so it couldn't move like a caulk gun piston. That's also going to make it difficult to install. Ah. All right, there it is. They're in. So that was already kind of a pain in the butt to put in, and I have a feeling it's going to be much more difficult when everything is all assembled. So Still probably easier than using tools. I'm gonna assemble everything. We'll try to swap out the bag with the knuckle on there and the upper control arm attached and all that. I realized while the camera was off, of course, that starting the bottom makes everything a hell of a lot easier. Beautiful. All right, man. I am so happy with how this bag turned out. Let me know what you guys think. Before any of you guys... Wait a second. Wait. I'm sorry. Just a moment, please. There's a hole right there. This is another pillow fab moment. I just thought of something last night. It's a little less tool free, but now it's locked. Okay, carry on. Sorry. Before any of you guys attempt the quick release bag setup, give me like 5 or 6 years to finish this truck, and then I will let you know if the bag falls out on the freeway. Things are moving along really nicely. We're getting really close to being able to set this truck on the ground and watch the air suspension work. We got to do a little work on the steering. That's coming up. I gotta get out of this garage. It's like super hazy after welding. Terrible idea to weld with the garage door shut. In fact, that's probably gonna be a video coming up soon, is the ventilation system that I gotta put in here, because this is bad. Yeah, don't do that. I gotta get out. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you so much. And until the next one, my friends, keep moving forward.